Hello, welcome to What's Right. My name's Garrett Bryan. My guest this week is a phenomenal singer and songwriter and performer and recording artist, and she's great in the studio when you need her to do other people's stuff too. She's an all-around team player. She has a brand new single out called Retrograde. She's constantly coming out with new music. She's been doing it forever, and she's everyone's best friend. Please enjoy McKenna Kasowski.
Sweet.
What's like? So you're writing a new one right now. What is that? Your process of it today, like, is it always been whatever that is?
No.
What does it kind of look like now, usually?
The writing process?
Yeah, like when you just like say you've already kind of jotted down something you've heard in passing, and you're like, that could be a cool thing, or maybe just something hits you.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you actually sit down to make something, what does that look like now?
Man, honestly, here recently, I don't a lot of times sit down with the intention of making something.
Yeah.
Which is nice, because in the past, like, I've struggled with, all right, I'm a songwriter, so I have to write a song or else I'm not a songwriter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And this past year, I was telling a friend a couple of days ago that this is the first year I feel like I've developed a healthy relationship with, like, when I go to bed tonight, I'm still a songwriter. So, and when I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm still a songwriter, even if I don't write a song.
That's very true. Is that like a guilt beforehand? Like, was it like you go to bed if you didn't write something, it was like guilty because, like, I can't call myself a songwriter or something? Or
Yeah, kind of. But what's funny is that now that I'm like, I don't have to write a song. Like last night, I wasn't planning on writing a song, and then I just picked up a guitar I hadn't touched in a few weeks, an acoustic guitar, and kind of felt like an old friend. Yeah. And then I got 2 verses down in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, that happened to me the other day too, and 2 has been from like not writing or feeling obligated to, which is like such a weird time to start like a podcast about this, but like that's been not with the greener or newer friends, but like my friends that have been writing their whole life, like you and who else I've had on, a couple other homies, Andrew Holmes.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning, it's almost like you're never not writing. Your foot's kind of always in that door, and you're almost like only like half present. Because, like, the other half of you is kind of, like, wondering how you could turn this situation into a song. Did you feel that way in the beginning?
Yeah.
Do you feel like this year's, like, the first year you haven't felt that way about, with writing?
Yeah.
Me too.
Yep.
I think it's because I'm a dad now. I thought, you know what I'm saying? But also just, too, like, just the time that I've put into writing. And I put a few years in, like, Jackson Browne style, like, every morning I'm going to the piano and I'm not starting my day until I finish a song, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that means just like never starting the day, you know, which I did several times. But like now it's like, there was something romantic about that. And I had so much fucking time on my hands too that it truly felt like I was working on a craft.
Mm-hmm.
When like now when I sit down to write, it kind of feels more like, because I put that time in, yeah, like you said, I don't feel obligated to every day. And when I do, because I've put that time in, I like have the tools to just allow myself to like let it kind of come through and kind of like trust that because I put all this kind of literary work in, I can let this kind of like spiritual thing, just trust that the literary work will allow it to like give it maybe like a chorus and a hook, or like a beginning, middle, and an end, you know. Have you like always been, has your relationship with it always been like in this like, in a literary or like scholastic way? Or was that just like, or was going to like going to South Plains, was that more of just like that was just the obvious next step?
Yeah, so songwriting itself it's always been, honestly, like selfishly, it's been more of, self-therapy and just coping with life. And then the literary aspect always came behind it. Going to South Plains was something I kind of stumbled on my sophomore year of high school. I knew that I didn't really want to pursue further education.
Sure.
I didn't necessarily want to go to university and get like a business degree or something.
Yeah.
I felt like that would have just driven me crazy. And then I went to a songwriting retreat my sophomore year of high school, which I hate to name drop this early. But
is it like Walt Wilkins or something?
Lloyd Maines.
Holy shit! Okay, yeah, that's it.
And Terry Hendricks put it on.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things in the world. I try to go every year, but with the hurricanes, it's in Port Aransas. Wow, so with the hurricanes and then COVID, I was the youngest person at this retreat.
That's what I was going to ask. I assumed that you would be.
Yeah, and Lloyd actually used to teach it at SPC, and that's like the smallest blip on his resume, but he had some connections. Well, that and all my friends'
records he's played on.
Yeah, it's he's got obviously a million wonderful reasons as to why he's a great person to know, but he was able to hook me up with some scholarships at South Plains, and
wow,
and
you're living in Conroe at this time, and you're like just now driving legally, probably.
Yeah, right? Not even quite. I was 15.
That's so awesome. Yeah. Is it cool? Like you and I don't have necessarily similar stories, but we just started so young, and adults like didn't think it was weird that you were like, no, like I want to do this. Not only do I want to do this, I kind of am already kind of doing this, and it was like, your family and friends already knew how good you were, but it's like when someone like Lloyd Maines hears you, I don't know, it's like a stamp of legitimacy.
Yeah.
It'll like, I don't know. It's easy. I don't know. Like, I feel like you and I have had friends that like, they've like battled with like, just because they're playing the barbecue circuit that we're all playing. And there's no shame in it. We all got bills to pay, and and there's gigs to be had. Let's go get those gigs. And it's like they feel like maybe if they don't have any family or friends that like have done it before, it feels like not a legitimate occupation to them in some way. But I feel like you and I feel like you and I truly know, like, this is the hardest job I've ever had. I've had job, like, and like, because I love what I do so much, I hate it more than other things. You know what I mean? Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Do you understand? Do you resonate with that?
Absolutely. I definitely feel like it's one of those things. If you're passionate about it, you're gonna feel strongly about it, and that goes for both directions.
Yeah.
It's very rare that I can't say I've ever played a show or written a song and just not felt anything.
Right.
I leave a bad show and it's really bad. I leave a good show and it's really good. Like there's no just.
That's true.
Maybe sometimes, but I really, off the top of my head, I can't think of a time where I just didn't like really feel strongly about something that I did.
I feel like I have like, at this very moment, I'm having like some bad shows, and then I'm having some that wasn't bad. You know what I mean? Like those are the two options I have right now. Like a good show would feel great. Yeah. You know? And maybe I'm asking too much. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. The list of things I don't know. It's like when you play the same rooms for so long, same types of rooms for so long, you kind of like I'll show up and I'll just start like checking off things that I know, like questions that I'll be asked or just things that I'll see things that won't be there, you know?
Yeah.
Like you get, like, okay, I pulled up and they're like, okay, we're going to do it outside today. I'm like, check. It's outside. It's like, oh, it's somewhere that doesn't have any power. It's like, check. All right, cool. You're also, like, there's a pretty good crowd. They come, you're going to get started about 8:30. The crowd doesn't really get here to about 11, but once they're here, they're going to want to stay. And it's like, okay, cool. It's like, but they're going to be 40 yards away from you the whole time. It's like, check. You know, it's like, about, you know, and I don't want to feel jaded in those things. I'm aware of those types of clubs and those types of gigs. And now I just have to tell, I don't know, last year I was like, but I can't be an artist at the country club bar and grill, you know? And that's true, you can't. But also, like, I have to tell myself, like, go in there, like, you know that. You're not even going there to express. You're just going there to pay your water bill. So, like, it's fine. Yeah.
It's a job just like anything else.
Yeah.
Definitely. I definitely resonate with that, though, like, just the last few months. And maybe it's just because this has been the hottest summer of my life.
For sure.
But it's definitely been a weird string of shows recently. And one thing I started doing to help with that is I just started writing down after every show, or sometimes even during the show, if I go on a break or something, and I go shake people's hands or something, I meet anyone, I'll make a note about them in my phone, and I've got this, now I don't even know how many pages it is, and I've only been doing this for about 6 or 7 weeks.
Wow.
It's been helpful, though, because...
That's cool.
Yeah.
You remember so many people's names that way, too.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people's names, and I was even looking through it yesterday. There was a show I played 3 weeks ago that I would have never remembered. Noah from California said he liked my song, The Witching Hour, but because I read that, I was like, I could picture his face, and I remember the conversation we had, and it's kind of cool. That's been helping a lot.
Travis, who owns Wonderland here and plays with Callahan, he always talked about how much he wished when we were all gigging all the time. He always talked about how much he wished he was like journaling, you know, just like write a paragraph or two before you lay down, just about what the fuck happened today, because there's not really routine really in our life, but there kind of is at the same time, and and it becomes like routine enough to where some things kind of run in together, and you don't really remember if that thing you're thinking about happened last week or last month.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you start like forgetting some stuff. I definitely do.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I always thought that I was like writing enough songs to where I was like, I don't have to journal. I'm writing all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to write about my experience, but now I'm doing that a little less. Mm-hmm. It's like I am still a writer. It's like maybe I don't have to always be questioning and be myself and my motives and my present, and like maybe I don't always have to be like expressing something. Maybe I should just be jotting some of this shit down.
Yeah.
You know, and I jot the things down that, you know, that we're always fishing for as songwriters. I'm jotting those things. When someone says something that it's like an undeniable, something cool, something prolific and simple at the same time, you know what that sounds like. It's always something different though. Like, yeah, if I catch one of those, I'll write it down. Or if I accidentally say something like that, I write it down. Mm-hmm. But I'm not jotting down like, me and Reagan went fishing today. She caught this. We threw it back. I'm not doing that. And I feel like maybe that in itself is like a good thing for memory, but also too just like flipping through at this when you are sitting down to write a song, you're like, oh yeah, we did this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a couple things on that too is, at least from what I've experienced, I'm obviously still learning and growing as a person, a songwriter, everything. But the more I just jot down stuff, I mean, obviously, preferably, I would be writing this stuff down in a journal. Like when I meet someone, I'm like, oh, I met Rob at this bar, and he told me about his daughter or whatever. Preferably, I'd be writing it down, like handwriting it. But obviously, it's, if I've got a 3-hour show and I take a break and I met the bartender, I'm going to go ahead and write his or her name down, on my phone. So it's just easier that way.
Yeah.
But I do find that just even writing down, simple nonfiction events that have gone on throughout the day, writing inspires writing.
Right. So I think writing inspires writing, and for me personally, like reading inspires writing. Mm-hmm. I'll catch myself like I don't really believe in writer's block, really. Mm-mm. I don't really think that's a thing. I think sometimes, if you're writing from like your current truth and you're being really honest and you're doing it a bunch, I think sometimes you'll just find yourself like catching up with yourself. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, do you have writer's block, or do you just not have anything to say because the last song was like kind of the present thing and you're kind of still living that? I catch myself in that sometimes because whenever I find inspiration, I do try to take advantage of it. Mm-hmm. And if that's something that's like presently happening, I don't know, it's almost like it's like if you're fishing for it, you'll finish the song before what you were even writing about unfolded. I catch myself doing that, and so like, I don't know, sometimes I'll have to write 2 songs about it because I was like, the second song will start with "Never mind about that first thing." I'm just kidding.
That's funny.
But you know what I'm saying? Like if I'm writing about some events that are like really presently happening, sometimes it's like sometimes if you can't get to the ending, it's like, man, you don't have writer's block. It's like you're caught up. You've caught that, like the work is caught up to your own self. Yes. I like that. I like that idea more than being like, I can't do this. It's like, no, it's like the ingredients that you were using there's no more of that in there. You have to go to the grocery store to get more. Which to us just means like you have to go live more. Mm-hmm. Right? And like you have to fall down and not like metaphorically, like fall, like, I don't know, bleed.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to look at it. And I see exactly what you're saying. One thing that I'm kind of like proud of myself for this year is, once again, I really feel like this is the first year that I've had a genuinely healthy relationship with songwriting. Like, I'm aware that I'm a songwriter. It's not consuming my life. Right. I'm not feeling guilty about anything regarding that. It's been really freeing. But I realized that because I had a lull where I didn't write for like the first 3 or 4 months of this year. And every now and then I would start to be like, oh, I haven't written a song in 2 months, like a full song or something that I'm proud of. Yeah. And I'd start to be like, I don't know. And then I had to take a second and sit back, and I was like, man, it's so cold. We've been stuck inside making beans the last 3 months. Like, that's been my life. How am I going to write songs about this?
Right. I mean, yeah. And even when you do, it's like, now what do I write about? If I've already written about making beans and being cold, it's like I'm fucking caught up.
I'm caught up. Yeah. And I got through that, and I've been writing a lot this summer.
But you've also been able to like gig and kind of live more than like the wintertime. You know, it was such a brutal like winter. Yeah. And the winters are slow for people like us anyway. But this one was just brutally cold and not much to do besides cook beans and snuggle.
Try to dodge the gap in the door frame, you know. Yeah.
Do you I see you write all the time, like, I guess I should say I've seen you write just all the time, just being around you and being around people around you sometimes. It's funny, that's a lot of mine in your relationship, is being around people that are around you and me. Yeah. Which is why I love it when it's just you and me, but it's not all the time, because you and I are always hanging out with people that are hanging out, in a way, right? Yeah. But anyway, because of that, I find myself around you a lot, but you're maybe in a different room doing something else. Yeah. I'm at your house, but like me and JT are working on somebody else's album. Right. So you're writing something or whatever, and you're going out with Blakely and sitting in the sun and like jotting bringing out the guitar and like writing a song. And even before you were living here, like in your other place, I would just see you kind of do that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Have you always done it like alone? Did it start that way?
Mm-hmm.
When you got to school, did that change? Or was it still kind of this solitary thing? It's
always been more of a solitary thing. I've co-written before. We've co-written before.
Yeah, and it was really fun and easy.
Super. It's definitely something I love to do, co-writing. Mm-hmm. It doesn't come natural to me though. My first co-write, it was actually the same writing retreat that I met Lloyd, and Lloyd talked about.
The first one?
Mm-hmm, the very first one that I went to. Terry Hendricks set me up with my first co-write, and it was a girl named Erin, about my age. She's a couple years older. And I had so much fun. I'd never met someone that was my age that played guitar really well and sang.
Gave a shit about it as much.
Yeah. And I really fell in love with it. I learned a lot.
Was she like really good too?
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, she really was. And I've gotten to co-write with a couple other people, a few other people. You know, Jordan and I write.
Yeah, y'all have a great couple of tunes that y'all written together.
Thanks. But even then, whenever I co-write, I find myself more often than not, even especially with Jordan, I noticed this, is we both write very like solitary-esque.
Yeah.
So we'll go off and, you know, I'll have an idea and I'll bring it to him.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of...
And he'll take that by himself.
Yes.
And then bring it back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if we're sitting in the same room, it's like two very opposite. And like he gets his face when he's thinking about something. So then I'll kind of sit back and just like, all right, I'm not going to mess with it. And then when I can tell he's kind of like, I don't know. Then like I'm like, all right, cool, I'll take over.
Yeah.
It's more like a game of volleyball.
Yeah, it's kind of like tennis. Yeah, that's what tennis. I was gonna say. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And he, it's funny to hear him talk about doing that with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he'd rather do it. He'd rather me bring him half a song rather than like him bring me half a song.
Yeah.
He would rather do that because the way he puts it, and it's so funny. It's like because like I know you know what this means, but like when you're like sitting down and you're like going back and forth with like how you and I did on the couch, we were giving each other a lot of like options. We're like, we could do this, and we could do that. He literally goes, he's like, I don't want options. I want the next fucking line. And so he's like, when you sit with other people, he's like, you get a lot of options.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't really want like a multiple choice thing. You know, he wants the next fucking line. And he goes, and for him and his writing, it's a very prolific way of writing.
Yeah.
And he's good enough to be able to pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
But I know exactly what he means when he says that. Yeah. He's like, I don't know what the next line is, but he goes, it is something specific. It's not, it could be this, and it could be this, and it could be that. It's something, and I don't know what it is yet, but when I know what it is, that's what it is.
Right.
And he's like, you giving me 7 things isn't necessarily going to get me any closer to this thing. And he's really being like not an asshole about that.
No.
I feel he's being like super honest about his own process, and like, you can't fault a motherfucker for that. No. You know, and I don't know, like, people will call Jordan arrogant for that. But it's like, yeah, but listen to his fucking songs.
Yeah.
Listen to them. He's not arrogant. He has ears. And he knows what he wants. I don't know. It's very funny. But I've done both with him. But him and I have known each other since we were in high school.
Right.
And so, and we've both pretty much been writing songs since then. And so I've sent him stuff, and then he's taken it and then brought more things back to me, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. And we've sat down together with nothing and made something when we were real young. And then more recently, it's more like if we sit down to like co-write something, I basically have to like with you, I was like, hey, Kenna, next week on Wednesday, do you want to come over and co-write? And you're like, yeah, that sounds really fun. With JT, I have to be like like you have to be like out of town, and then like I have to just kind of randomly stop by when he's like fucking off, not doing anything, and then I have to like. So I've already been at home for like an hour working on a riff. I have like a verse already, but he doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And I go to Yarrow's house, and we just bullshit and hang for about 30 minutes or so, and I just pick up a guitar and I act like it's the first time I'm playing this thing. And if it's really good, he'll get excited, and then he'll like, all right, let's work on it. And that's basically how I figured out to like get him to actually like really co-write. Because any other way, he's gonna want to like take it and then like go away and then bring it back. And it's good either way. It's always really good.
That is so funny.
Yeah, I've done that with like, the last two Callahan Divide songs we recorded, they're not out yet, but the last two that we recorded that I sang on, me and Jordan wrote.
Cool.
And we wrote them at y'all's house, and we wrote them as like really country ditties. But I brought them to the band as like with like a different composition and melody and stuff, basically as like a rock song.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to do it with Callahan Divide anyway. But both of those songs, I went over to JT's. I already had like half a song written. And I was just like, oh, maybe it could be this. He was like, yeah, that's good. I was like, yeah. I was like, I'd already jotted that down over here. Like, yeah, that was pretty good. And,
That's amazing.
And then it was like, it got to a point where it's like, I'd already caught up with myself. I was like, all right, what do you think? Just hand it to him. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
You gotta get the fucking song done, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hey.
I waited till pause. Hey. He is in here. Okay, I was afraid.
Yeah.
Oh.
You good? You good,
How
babe?
are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I was waiting for a pause in the conversation.
We're keeping that in.
Pause for the cause.
Yeah. Pause for the doggy pause.
Yes. That's cute. Man.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Absolutely.
Shoot.
So you got a year into your running campaign?
Almost.
We calling it a campaign?
Campaign.
What are we calling it?
I just call
It's
it
just a routine.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, I just call it my running streak.
Yeah.
So, gosh, let me tell you, we're not quite a year, but I know I'm less than 2 months.
Oh shit.
Away from a year. November 7th will be a year.
You think you'll keep going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm at 324 days.
Wow. Is that a mile a day?
At least.
Do you normally do more?
I wouldn't say normally.
Yeah.
But my goal for the rest of this year is to do 2 5Ks a week.
Yeah.
Which is 3.1 miles.
Yeah.
And every now and then I'll do a little bit more than like a mile. Like here recently I've been doing like 1.25 every day. And it's just a routine thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to, at the end of that year, I'd love to compare how many steps I've taken to how many steps you've taken.
That'd be a fun comparison. Man.
I definitely want to make a more healthy routine and to make something physical happen in my day-to-day. I just know that running's not going to be that thing. If I'm being honest, like, this may be kind of lazy, but it's like to get me in the state to where like I want to sweat that much, that often, and like make it a routine thing, I have to like learn something new. Like I'm gonna have to like take up like jiu-jitsu or something. You know what I'm saying? Like just so that I can be like, because when I'm running, I'm like I could just stop doing this at any time. But it's like in the middle of like a boxing class or something. It's like no, it's like I only have from here to here. Like I have to do this now. And it's like I don't know. Like I said, maybe it's a lazy thing. It's like that's just like I know that I'll do it like that.
Yeah.
Rather than me like just walking outside and just taking off running.
Yeah, I mean,
which is so much easier and cheaper.
grateful for that. That's like the one cheap thing I like to do. I say that I started wearing really expensive running shoes, and which makes a difference.
I will say like running in these is not probably the best thing for my body.
Yeah. I don't know though. I think it's cool to just have a routine. I kind of started it just to see if I could.
Yeah.
I saw that a friend of mine, Drew Myers, was doing it.
Who has a great podcast and book.
Yeah, and I was reading his book actually, and at the time, I think he'd done the streak for like 10 years, and I was like,
wow.
Yeah.
He is that type of dude too.
Yeah. He had an exact day count. Unfortunately, he just recently made a post. He had to break it, and it was due to injury. He said he tried.
What a pussy.
He like ripped his ACL or something. Like, there's no way.
Something super metal. Yeah.
Yeah, and
now he wouldn't have stopped for nothing.
No, and but still, his streak was so inspiring to me. And it's when I started it, I didn't even start it as like I'm gonna be more fit, whatever, because that never works for me. I've tried that every time I start working.
Well,
out.
and I just think I look so good already. That's just not gonna work for me.
It's not gonna work.
No. I'm gonna need someone that's like my size, like punching me.
Yeah.
In the face for me to want to be like, I should probably run a little bit so I can kind of
get
quicker about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, it's something that I do every day. Yeah. And I was telling Jordan this last night. There's probably been 2 days since this running streak that the only reason I got out of bed was to do that. And then I went right back to bed.
I can understand that being a pretty healthy relationship with running then.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do, like, on our types of days, on our, like, Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and you're not, like, booking and stuff, and you're not updating the website and recording content, like, what's, like, mentally happening? What's, like, mentally happening?
So there's 2 ways those days go.
Yeah.
And the one way, probably my favorite way, is I wake up, I run. That's usually the day that I'll run further because I know I don't have stuff to do, so I can get sweaty and go shower and whatever. Yeah. Cook good food, read a book, maybe play some guitar, write a song, maybe. Yeah. Or I just drink all day, sit out in the sun, work on my tan. Yeah. And both are self-care for me, depending on...
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I feel like because you and I started doing this so young, we're able to like appreciate those Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays and not feel like... I'm not pointing fingers, but I think JT and maybe Hayden and some other of our friends, maybe T.O., some really hardworking, very talented people, I feel like they can't have a day off because it feels like to them sometimes, and I'm putting words in their mouth. I'm only assuming. They can correct me if I'm wrong.
JT's told me this like this week.
Sure. So, I know this about JT. I know him. Yeah. But I'm kind of assuming about the other guys. It's just like, it's like, what am I doing if I'm not doing something? And like you said, it's like, that's kind of self-care time. Mm-hmm. And it's like, sometimes I don't know, I get to be a dad on most of those days now. So it's like, I do have something to do fucking all day. Make sure somebody doesn't die. You know what I mean? That's like rewarding in its own way too. But even when he's not here and he's at his mom's or something, and I have those days, like, more often than not, like you, like, I'm just able to kind of like read a book and like, you know, I'm not going out and running, but just because that's not self-care to me at this very moment. I'm going to eat a pizza. But it's like, you know what I mean? I'm going to like catch up on podcasts and stuff, and I'm going to kind of like, maybe I'll write something, but if I don't, like, I'm kind of unplugged anyway. So it's like, okay. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, and that's how I want the day to go. Like, I just want to like catch up on podcasts and kind of just chill and enjoy not having somewhere to go. But on the bad days where you're just waking up and it just doesn't feel good to not have something to do. Yeah, it's like it goes from like, well, yesterday I felt like I was self-employed, and that today I feel like I'm unemployed.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't like feeling that way.
I agree.
There's a fine line between like being your own boss and like just not having an occupation.
Yeah.
And I don't know. On those days for us, it looks the same way. And so, but for me, I know that in another day or two, I'm not gonna have a day like this. And I feel like maybe JT and Tio and maybe Hayden and some of our other friends, they're so fixated on like that particular moment, rather than being like, I could use this time to rest.
Yeah. For
the shit I have to do Friday or whatever. Man, used to before I was a dad, for sure. Like, even if I didn't have a gig, like, throughout the week, like on Friday, if it was like I had to play that night, and it wasn't till like 9, I would literally, like, I would sleep as late as I possibly could. I would wake up and take the longest, hottest shower and do like vocal warm-ups in the shower. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole day was basically just like resting for like 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Just to give like all of my energy at 9 o'clock to like however long, and then like basically do that same thing Saturday. And like, basically like knowing sometimes that like, if you've gigged a bunch that week, you kind of need that prep of the day before. And for people, like for me specifically, like I need to not drink anything like too like carbonated or cold, you start getting into like prima donna territory, but it's like I just know my throat,
right?
And I smoked for so long too, like I had to always kind of think about like, what is my throat doing right now?
Yeah.
And how it's so dry right now from drinking all this wine.
Yeah, the wine is the worst thing.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't know.
I get it though. I don't know. One thing I'm still working on is what exactly do those self-care days look like for me, because sometimes, like today was kind of that way. I woke up, I ran. I ran slow. I listened to a podcast.
Right.
I wasn't worried about times. Most days, and I'm doing a longer distance run, I am worried about times. But today I was like, man, I have a goal.
Go.
Yep. I'm going to just keep going, not think about it. I listened to a podcast on my jog and enjoyed that. Made 2 good meals today.
That's so good.
Yeah, that's something that I found, like, living in Clyde, it's kind of hard to get, fuel for your body.
We cook every meal.
Yeah.
We literally, I will say, even in Abilene, you can't really find really good food. But I will say this, the next time you're in Abilene and you are hungry, you can trust Miko's Greek food. And
they have Greek food here in town. I didn't know that.
And it's 100% authentic. It's like, it's one dude that owns it, runs it, and cooks it. And he's cool as shit. Like, and I don't know. It's just 100%
cool.
The real thing. We found it, I don't know, last week. And yeah, it was like the first and only good meal I've had in Abilene in a fucking long time. But yeah, there's nothing here in town that's not like brown, yellow looking.
Yeah.
They know how to fry some shit. But it's like it starts, I don't know. It's just like I can't even someone looks like a farmer like me, like I can't eat fried food every fucking meal.
Well, it definitely weighs on you, and then and you can tell too. And even, I was telling JT this the other day, just running every day, even if I just do, like there was a couple months where I was just really busy and all I did during that month was 1 mile a day. That's it for a whole month. So that's 10 minutes of exercise a day.
Yeah.
It's not that much when you think about it.
That's very true.
But it was enough for me to realize whatever I ate the day before, I know how it's affecting me on this jog, and I can tell.
For sure.
And it's good because it's a benchmark. So, if I eat a pint of Bluebell, then tomorrow I'm going to be sluggish.
Yeah.
If I eat some green stuff, then I'm going to probably have a faster mile time tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
I cook some country, so it's like I'll fry some stuff up sometimes. You
oh
know,
yeah.
And I like gravies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But Ray can basically cook anything, and so
Mm-hmm.
like I can literally be like, hey, this week I'd kind of like to like not eat a lot of bread, and I'd like kind of eat a little greener, and she's like, no problem, you know, and it's like delicious.
Wow.
You know, it's like you can't do that anywhere in town though.
No.
You can't even. It's so funny because like it's like even though there's more options growing compared to like me living here a couple years ago, there's more options here, but they have the same food everywhere that you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just do it at home. It's better for you.
Yeah.
But it's like just I don't know. It's more rewarding too.
Yeah.
And really, at the end of the day, it's like I don't mind doing the dishes, I guess, if it means we can have this.
Yeah. No, exactly. I get
How
that.
many singles have you released this year?
This year? 2 this year.
Don't you have like 2 more in the can?
Well,
Am I not supposed to say that?
well, no. I kind of changed my mind on some things.
Really? Like composition things?
No, not composition. Just release schedule.
Okay.
I was wanting to just do like single, just to get some content out.
Content queen. Content queen of Callahan County.
Oh my gosh.
This episode of What's Right is brought to you by Wonderland Records. Wonderland Records is a full-service recording studio and rehearsal space based in Clyde, Texas. You can ask for dates and or ask for a tour at Instagram at _Wonderland Records _. Thank you, Wonderland Records.
But we've been recording this project called Cosmic Kana out at Junk Drawer Records, the house.
Yeah.
And
For a long time, you know, Yellow Dog was just Dave's house.
yeah,
No shame in the game.
no shame. So at the Junk Drawer, we've been working on Cosmic Kana, which is the name of the project as a whole. There's
So,
gonna be
so these other singles will go on it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's going to be a 3-part project. It is a 3-part project, and they each have different, I say 3-part, I like to call it chapters. And the first chapter is really cool. I'm excited about it. It has the 2 singles on it that I was thinking about putting out.
Do you have names for the chapters?
I have a name for the
Colors or
first
something?
one.
Okay.
I think as of now, I'm calling it 4 Feet in the Ether.
Okay.
All the chapters are going to be titled using lyrics from one of the songs. Sure. So that one is 4 Feet in the Ether.
I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
How many songs are going to be on off? Like, how many songs are in each part?
As of now, 4.
4 in each part.
Yes.
And you don't have a title for like chapter 2 and 3?
Not yet. The problem is I keep changing. I keep removing and replacing songs, and like
Does the sonic space determine where they are, or does the subject matter determine where they are?
sonic space. Subject matter is important because the project is called Cosmic Kana, and that's for a lot of reasons. But also I have a bunch of songs that have to do with cosmic subjects.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah, is that because you can like see the dead?
well, only when I want to.
This house isn't haunted. The only thing that's died in here are like my hopes and dreams.
That's, it's funny.
Some vegetables in the refrigerator. Dead.
Didn't even get used. No, maybe some of those songs have come from. It's funny when people say like seeing the dead. I definitely don't consider myself like a psychic or by any means.
Sure.
But seeing is a funny term for that because
Sure.
it's like it's a different.
Right. It's not like seeing with your eyes.
Yeah.
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 But also like would you agree, like, whatever space that is, whatever realm that is, would you agree that, like, there's, like, it's kind of like this, where that prayer type songwriting space kind of lives? Do those worlds, like, kind of like maybe not coexist, but if it's like a spectrum, do you think there's like a middle ground where, like, yeah, at least in those songs that you're talking about, you know what I'm saying? Maybe not when I'm doing like a satirical funny song about Nashville or something like that.
Right.
Maybe not in that space, but like in that witching hour space when you're writing and creating that, or the keeper space. Do you think, like,
definitely the keeper? Definitely.
What's the other two that's going to be on chapter 1?
So chapter 1 is actually going to be Dislocated Dream.
Okay.
Which I wrote with Jordan Tyler Haynes, but the initial idea of it kind of came that way, not necessarily in a bad way. It's going to be Twist the Knife.
Okay.
Which was a definite, like, yeah, well, that one I really had to plug away at to write, but Twist the Knife. And then there's another one on there called Fizzle Out. And then the third one is called God or Whatever. Sorry, the fourth one.
It's called God or Whatever?
God or Whatever.
What a fucking title. That is such a good title.
Thank you. And that song in particular definitely came from a place that I can't quite explain.
Right.
Which I feel like every song comes from a space in that way, in some way, shape, or form.
Maybe your songs do.
Yeah, I'm
not saying that. I'm just saying, like, there's some of us out here writing songs that haven't quite walked through that door yet.
Yeah.
They're still, like, trying to, like, they're still thinking in terms of rhymey rhymes.
Yeah.
And party parts. And you're kind of trusting that you're kind of trusting that you've already done that work, like we were talking about earlier, to where you're just allowing to, like, connect to that space, right? And kind of just, like, be a funnel for that realm through just the art of song.
Right. It's one of my favorite things, and I watched to think about and ponder, because really it doesn't matter if you think about it or not, but I love the concept of having a daemon.
Right, you did. Yeah, you were the one that was telling me about that.
And I learned about this through a TED Talk, and I wish I could remember. It was a lady by the name of Elizabeth. I can't remember her last name, but it's a TED Talk on originality and sorry, not originality, about art and how art has been perceived throughout centuries and throughout
different cultures and
different
stuff.
Cultures. And the Greeks believed that every person has a creative energy. This is a separate entity, which they called a daemon, which is actually where the word demon comes from, which I love.
Yeah, dude.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
But this is an entirely separate entity that every person is born with.
Right.
And I thought that's interesting because I was raised Catholic, and we're taught that we have guardian angels.
Okay.
A separate entity.
Okay.
So I'm finding all these connections of these different things. But a daemon is particularly responsible for your creativity, anything you do artistically. And the Greeks held art in a very high value, but kind of the good part of having a daemon is the fact that if you do something, if you make a really cool painting, well,
you have to congratulate the daemon.
Yeah.
But in turn, if it's shit,
it's horrible.
It's not on you.
It's not on you. And the TED Talk was actually about, hey, maybe if we kind of bring back this concept, maybe we won't have so much addiction problems and so many people trying to, you know.
America is so, and I'm an American, so like I'm not excluded from this, but America is so, as a whole, I think there's plenty of people that, like, separate the artist from the person, the art from the person. And I think that's, And it's like a lot of people can be like, yeah, I can separate the art from the person.
Mm-hmm.
And then they bring up like R. Kelly. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, you know? And the reason I like the Damon idea is for like you said, when I make something that's not good, it's really not on me. It's just, it's my little creative homie that lives inside of me.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
If everyone were to like accept that in our culture, and that was like, that's how we viewed people being creative, it would take away some of the like shitty, like surface level things that like we glorify.
Right.
Because like, if we were thinking that way in the 80s, Prince wouldn't be this like alien, holier than thou person that like floats around and is mysterious. He would just be another person with a very specific daemon.
Yeah.
I just think that's so interesting to think about. I feel like America as a whole, until it collapses inevitably, we're not going to be able to shake how we already view those things, because right now you and I are living in like in this content creator world where it's like, no, this is me.
Yeah.
This is my stuff, but it's like to even get you to like the stuff, you have to like me.
Yeah.
First. And then you can see what I'm doing. And in that way, in this content creator world, it's like, you like me, XYZ face, and you like it if it's making music, or if it's making a show, or if it's on a t-shirt, or if it's sponsoring vitamin water. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you just like this likeness. And it's like, for us to like accept that everyone has a daemon, is for us to shed that. I think we're in too deep.
Well, that's interesting because you say that, and I'm also wondering, you know, during that time with the Greeks, did they have marketing? I'm sure they did, some form of it.
Surely,
but,
yeah.
you know, was it what did that look like?
Marketing then, not to assume like I sit here and know anything about what happened then, but it was probably more like, if we're viewing marketing as something like lying kind of about the product to make you want it more than you actually should. That's how I look. That's how I think. Isn't that the definition of marketing?
It's fair.
I think maybe it started with something like, you know, maybe they had some wine, and it's just wine, but someone is confidently enough going, this particular wine, if you rub it on your forehead, you know, it'll cure your husband's headaches or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And maybe that was like an early form of marketing, like purposefully kind of steer. And it's like, it's like if you drink enough wine, your fucking headache's going to go away. You're going to get drunk and go to sleep.
For a minute.
But it's like, but you're going to wake up the next morning and your headache's going to hurt. And so if you wake up the next morning, you know what you need to do to get rid of your headache. You need to drink. And it's like, that's marketing, right? Like, and I don't know.
That's a great example.
Yeah, right. Whenever you get a headache, you need to drink this. And it's just like just drying them out and like getting them drunk, and their head feels so good until they wake up the next day and like they have a fucking pain. Like, I have to get my magic wine elixir to fucking read. And that's marketing.
Respect. But you didn't have to like the person who created the wine.
That's true. Gosh.
That's the whole daemon concept is something I think about a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like because it's something that's so like conscious in your thoughts, like and like while you're making stuff, you're making it so consciously. Like you're like allowing yourself to live. You live the life of an artist, but you're like allowing yourself to just live a life. And it's just like artistry is like just a byproduct of living, because you have this daemon that everyone has. Yep. And it's like, that makes it all a little less special, which makes it all that more real. Right. Less special is like, less magical, rather. Right. But like more, just more legitimate and unique, or genuine, rather.
Well, and it would be, I would love to live to see a day where that concept in itself is
Yeah.
more widely understood and accepted. Only because, I mean, man, if you could find a way to not take all the blame or the credit.
Right.
Because one thing that is funny to me, and it obviously hasn't happened that much, but every now and then you'll be doing like an interview with someone or like radio personnel or something, and they're like, man, how does it feel to be able to write a song like that? Or something along those lines.
That's always a question that comes from someone who's never written a song.
Yeah.
Or never like, maybe they've written like a rhymey song.
Right.
But not that connective thing to that ether, like that what like Rodney Crowell would call the zeitgeist. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I never know how to quite respond to that, because it's like you could too.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah,
that
you have a daemon.
You have a daemon.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
To simply put it, you have I love how inclusive that is.
Yeah.
Because like I spent, and it's probably just like an arrogant thing, but it's like for a long time that daemon concept just like opposed like a lot of things that I thought. And that's why I loved it, because it made me think. And it made me think about other people differently when you told me about it, because I feel like for probably like 3 or 4 years, I was like in this like what train of thought of like, no, there's two kinds of people. There's creative people and there's people that just aren't creative. And I thought that way for like I said, like 3 or 4 years maybe, and I like said it out loud to people, you know, and like really meant it when I said it, like really thought it was the truth. And when you brought this like daemon thing to my attention, it literally made me start viewing everyone more equally, because not that I thought anyone was better than the other person, just since I was a kid, I loved music and I loved writing songs. And so whenever I would meet someone new, that was like the first question I asked them. If I'm like making a friend at a new school or a new town, that was the first thing I just asked someone. Do you like music too? Do you play music? Do you write songs? And if they didn't, that was fine. But if they did, I knew we would hang out.
Right.
And so it's just like I took that into adulthood, and then like that became my job. And so it was like because of that, like all of my friends kind of do this. And so for a while, it just felt like kind of us against everyone else. Maybe not against, but like it's us and everyone else. Artistic people that work for themselves and gig for a living, and there's everybody else.
Right.
But the daemon mentality is like, no, there's everyone doing whatever the fuck, and you know, maybe their daemon isn't as active as mine or yours.
Right.
And maybe their daemon isn't, and maybe they haven't played with their daemon as much as you and I have. It's like, you and I probably really don't give a fuck about like Halloween necessarily. I don't know. I'm not trying to assume. It's like, but you and I, in a way, it's real and it's our jobs. But like in a way, because we get to perform, in a way, you and I get to connect to like that part of us that used to play pretend. And maybe it's a little more grown up now. It's like we're not necessarily playing dress up. We're just dressing up.
Right.
But like it's the same thing. Like we get to go do that. And it's literally just because we've spent more time maybe letting our daemon, if we're going to use that as like how we're viewing it, we've like spent more time letting our daemon drive, you know, our subconscious or whatever, rather than like us taking it over and being like, no, I'm going to go install pools. Not that isn't creative work, but like I'm going to go install pools and I'm going to kind of like ignore whatever this daemon thing even is.
Right. Well, I think it's very interesting too, because I hear people say too, you know, in modern times, well, everyone's born creative.
Yeah.
So in my mind, when I heard the daemon concept, I was like, well, everyone has a daemon, but if that daemon is an entity, but maybe that entity doesn't have the actual ability to pick up a pen and write, but you do, and this person or this entity, maybe not a person, but this entity over here is creative, is the creative energy. If you actually try to connect with that energy.
Yeah.
The more you connect with that, just like how you would with a person, you become more comfortable with that person.
Right. It's almost like a friendship,
yeah,
right?
a friendship, yeah.
So
absolutely.
it's like, how long have you known about the daemon concept? How old were you maybe?
Well, honestly, it's a newer concept.
Okay.
I would say 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. Mm-hmm. Gosh. I will say, like, I don't think about it all the time, but just because I don't necessarily, I've been doing this for so long, I don't analyze my own imagination, really, anymore. Mm-hmm. I've lost so much of it from just growing up that I don't want to, like, psychoanalyze it. I just want to let it kind of breathe and live.
Right.
But having, like, a couple conversations like this with a few people, like, I've been able to just, like, think about like, what I would consider, like, a muse. And that kind of goes maybe against the view of the daemon, because that puts it back in, like, your own court, and, like, something else is inspiring you, and that's, like, becoming your muse or whatever. And there's, like, super gross, ugly, unhealthy ways of viewing that. Like, Reagan is not my muse. Jordan is not your muse. That's not a word. It's like words like that. Words like that and, like, soulmate and stuff like that. They're not necessarily designed for who you're living with and married to. That's not necessarily where those words even came from.
Right.
And so I kind of hesitate to use those words. And I hesitate to use the words like zeitgeist and stuff like that. But when I'm talking about writing with someone who's been doing it as long as you have, at the caliber of which you do it, it's like we're no longer talking about, like, structure anymore. It's like we've surpassed this. It's like those things are just going to come because we're good at structure and stuff. But that's kind of it kind of doesn't really have anything to do with, like, tracking down the end of a song. Mm-hmm. What's part 2 like? Of your new project?
So part 2 is a rock project.
Okay, just sonically. It's like 4 rock. Have I heard the songs?
All but one.
Okay.
Jordan and I were having a meeting this morning about initially we're going to have the witching hour on that project.
Instead of the first one?
Yeah, instead of the first one. But it just wasn't sonically fitting the other songs.
Okay.
So I think that's going to be a separate thing on its own. We're trying to figure that out right now.
So when you say rock, and I'm comparing it to the first part, does the first part live in more of a soundscape, there's, like, verbs and colors and stuff going on? And when you say rock, is that something that's a little more drier and rhythm based?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's the third chapter?
That is going to I'm calling it folk for now.
Cool. Yeah.
But
it's a bit more intimate.
Yeah, more intimate. But we're definitely gonna take some elements from like John Moreland's new record.
Like some bleeps and bloops and stuff.
Yeah. There's a song that's going on there called Supernova, which I'm not sure if you've heard just yet.
Oh no, that's a cool title.
I've been writing a lot the last few months, and it's a newer one, but it definitely, like, it could benefit from, some MIDI stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of hesitate to call it folk, because folk music is, back porch.
Taylor Behringer calls what Moreland's doing experimental folk.
Okay.
So I feel like
cool.
If it's gonna live in that world, maybe that's maybe like an umbrella you can cling to.
Yes, so I would. Yeah, that's perfect. Actually, experimental folk for that third.
Yeah, you should title that part like "Songs for Coffee."
Yeah.
Or something. As long as like when you're talking about when I think about the bleeps and bloops of a John Moreland experimental folk thing, I think about it being like not abrasive at all. Like like something I could like start my day with.
Right. Yeah.
That's the only reason I said like songs for morning coffee or whatever.
Yes.
But.
The chapter 2 is definitely the more abrasive.
Yeah.
The most abrasive.
Yeah.
But the third project is going to be a lot easier on the psyche. Well, I say that.
And they're gonna be are they gonna be separate EPs that you title like accordingly? Or are you gonna like put it all out as one thing and chop it up like that?
I'm going to release them separately.
Yeah.
The vision is to eventually have him on vinyl as one thing. But vinyl is, a commitment.
Yeah.
So we'll see, depending on how long it takes. Because the other thing is, too, I'm really not trying to take my time with this, but I'm not going to rush it because I want it to be a certain way, and I'm not entirely sure what that way looks like right now.
Yeah.
I've got a pretty good blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Jordan Haynes producing it makes a huge difference.
Oh, yeah. It's nothing since you and I have met, I think the first time you came to Clyde, him and I were working in a studio together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, were.
And I think the following 5 times you came to Clyde, maybe we were doing the same thing and maybe in different rooms, but like, he's like, I've made records without him. I just don't like to. You know what I mean? Like, when I'm producing someone else's stuff, I'm not making my own records without him. He's fucking there when I make my own records. But, like, I go and do stuff and produce stuff with other engineers, and I trust other engineers. But JT at all times is a great engineer, a great producer, and a great player, and a great team player.
Yeah.
Like, all at the same time. And at the same time, he can, like, shoot you straight without ever making you mad.
Yes.
And that is an ingredient that I didn't even know was, like, necessary in the studio until I started working in the studio so much. And I don't I'm a sensitive bitch. But, like, in the studio, though, it's like you can talk to me how I'll get it there, you know?
Right.
And so I just I don't know, like, I'm pretty soft-spoken. I don't know, like, I'm maybe not soft-spoken, but I'm never, like, negatively spoken when I'm at the studio and I'm at the helm, you know. But I've been in studios like that. And then obviously other artists have too, before they've come to make a record with me and JT. And that's what they talk about sometimes more than, like, the composition of stuff or the notes of stuff or this part or that part. They talk, it's like, it's almost, that's what it boils down to almost every time, is like the vibe. And not to get, like, that's such a vague term, but it's like, seriously, what are the vibrations that are happening in the room right now? And it's like, if they're positive vibrations, and these people, whoever, XYZ, they're spending money to be here. So as long as it's positive and work is being done and things are moving forward, I don't know, it's like, that's all you really need to make something. And it's like when JT and I would go and make records for other people in other towns and other studios and stuff, and we would work with other owners and engineers and stuff, we were both learning. Yeah. But he was, like, already in the mindset of, like, I'm going to make a studio. And I'm going to, like, you know what I'm saying? We were both learning because we were both making people's records and making our own records, and we needed to learn. Right. But he was learning in a way of, like, looking around, like, about specific pieces of gear that he's going to acquire. Right. And that was a level that I wasn't paying attention to that level. I was paying attention to, like, maybe them tracking and quantizing and doing things that I don't like, you know. And he was too, but he was also on this other level of, like, awareness of it all, you know.
That's what's so impressive about him is not only I think one of the best things about him and why I like working with him in the studio is he is very direct but kind. Right. And in the studio, I don't really care. Like if I'm singing harmonies on someone's song, just
You don't
tell
really
me.
have something to invest. Yeah, just tell me like legitimately what you need.
Yeah, what do I need to do? How did
Yeah.
that sound? Because I'll go do it. If it wasn't right, and he's great about that when it comes to when I'm doing backgrounds on someone else's stuff.
Right, but that's not the same thing as like when you're fishing for like making something.
Right.
And he's still in that seat driving. But he acts the same way.
Right.
You're not viewing what you're doing the same way because it's not the same thing.
Right.
You singing harmonies for Hey Good's album is not the same thing as you like not knowing what you want for this song that you're in the booth recording right now.
Yes.
But he understands both of those things
He does.
too,
He does.
And too, like, to give him credit, like he's never lying about anything.
Mm-mm.
Like he's never lying about anything, and like what you're comparing the fuck up that you're being mad about yourself to about, like he's aware of like how good you are. When right in that very moment, you're not even aware of that. In that very moment, you're just a piece of shit to yourself. Like in that very moment, you are not good at all. But he's aware of all these other moments that's led up before then.
Right.
And he's aware that this next one's going to be better. And so it's like it's coming from this place of like with you, it's definitely love and respect. But it's like it's also coming from this place of just like I said earlier, he's just got ears.
Yeah.
And they're pretty unbiased.
Mm-hmm.
He loves you. He loves me. But he's not going to give us a note that's not true.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yep.
And because he knows how good you are, that's why you're going to do another take.
Right.
And I feel the same way with him. When we did Make Believe, the whole record was done. And we got like the first round of mixes back. And he didn't even send a mix note. He just goes, Garrett has to sing all of this again.
Damn.
And I was before that phone call, I was jamming it at the house. I was feeling myself. I was like on cloud nine about it. And then when he said that, it destroyed me for like 30 seconds.
Damn.
But I was happy about it really because he was invested enough to be honest with me about it.
Right.
And I don't know. He wouldn't have. I don't think anyone should, but he wouldn't have said that out of anything other than honesty. There was no reason for him to say that if he didn't truly believe that, and there's no reason for me to invite him to the session if it's not but for to allow him the floor when he has a fucking note like that. Mm-hmm. I have to listen to that.
Yeah. He's got probably the best ear out of anyone I've ever met. So when he makes a note, it's...
Yeah. I think Brandon Fulton has the best ears that I've ever met.
Okay.
As far as hearing. JT has the best set of ears in the context of he can hear it and fix it. Mm-hmm. He can hear it and I can bring something to him and I can... like this podcast, when we're done with it, I can send him the audio and be like, hey, I'm hearing kind of too much room in the mics.
Yeah.
And he could be like, well, try this, this, and this. And if I do it, it will fucking literally, it may not take all of it out, but it will literally help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. He's a very, I'm not going to sit here and say he's a necessary ingredient when I'm making other people's records, but he is my favorite person to work with.
Yeah.
Because of all of that.
Yeah.
Among being able to like play literally track to a click and key to almost any instrument I've thrown at him.
Right. It's impressive.
When Reagan met JT, it was she was coming in to do her single at Notion, and I was producing it, and I had Casey come in and do bass, and Taylor do the drums, and JT was going to do mandolin and stuff like that. And I sent it to Taylor because I knew he was going to chart it out and play it, and I sent it to Casey because I knew he had a 4-hour drive here. He would chart it out. But I make records with JT all the fucking time. He wasn't going to even listen to it, so I didn't bother sending it to him. And I didn't even tell him what he was going to play that day. But it didn't matter. Him and I, that was like right around the time you maybe just started kind of being around JT and just started really seeing him and stuff. And like that, in that very moment, him and I were consistently making people's records all the time. And it was always at Notion in that small room before they sold it. And so I didn't tell him shit. I told him what time to fucking show up.
Right.
Hey, bro, we're showing up. I may have told him who we were doing it with, but like I didn't tell. He didn't know if he was going to be an engineer that day, a producer, He didn't know what the fuck. He just knew show up at 10.
Yeah.
And he got there at 10. And I told him, hey, I set up a mandolin station over there for you. And he rolled his eyes because he hates playing mandolin. And he went over there and he started tuning up the mandolin. And instantly Reagan was like, hey, so I was thinking on the bridge we could do like this. He just looks up. It's the first thing he's ever said. He goes, oh, I've never heard this fucking song. I have no idea what we're about to do. And at that time, because I had told her that I'd send it to everybody.
Yeah.
And I did send it to everybody except for JT, who didn't fucking need. And when she looked at me, I was like, I know, I sent it to everyone.
Just trust me.
I was like, sending it to JT wasn't going to change what the fuck he was going to do today. And he's going to be fine. And he was.
Yeah. And it's a great single. That was a Rainbow, right?
Yeah, it was such a good single.
I love it.
And she's putting that on the album that she did the rest of the tunes at Yellow Dog.
Oh, cool.
She's going to put Rainbow on that album.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear it.
We did Rainbow here, and then she did the rest of the album with Casey at Yellow Dog. And then we were just like, we kept listening back, and he kept doing some mixing notes and stuff. And it was just like, I don't know, maybe I just randomly said, I kind of like, I didn't want to, but I was kind of like, do you think I should retrack the acoustic? And I didn't really want to say it, but her and Casey were both like, yeah, I think you should. I was like, fuck yeah. And so, like, it was the first time I got to use this space for something that wasn't like a podcast.
Yeah.
I got to, like, set up and, like, track acoustic in here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Which I know it's no big deal to you. You fucking seen that shit happen every day at your house. But, like, other than just, like, drinking and talking, I haven't utilized the fact that I soundproofed this motherfucker yet.
Man. That's amazing.
We were supposed to do raised vocals today. Like, not vocals, but, like harmonies on, like, a couple of songs.
Yeah.
And we just didn't. You know what I mean?
That's...
We almost did so many things today. Like, we almost did vocals. Like, I had it set up to do that.
Y'all were going to do it here?
We almost did vocals today. We almost went to Fort Worth and got a vehicle. Like, but all we really did was, like, eat food and went fishing. That's like basic. Yeah.
So I always joke, like, that's the worst part about living at the junk drawer. Is the best and worst part is we can record anytime, but also
so you kind of won't.
Yeah, we can record anytime.
Anytime.
Yeah. So then it's like,
I know you would have flaked on this if I didn't tell you I was moving. Like, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No.
But it's like, but I feel that though.
Yeah.
Like I've only had this space set up for a couple months now, and yeah, it's like it took a week for me to get those acoustic tracks to Casey.
Yeah.
Just because he sent literally before he sent it, I was like, yeah, I can do it right now, and I could have. And I could have done it the next. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I was like, I can do it. I can do it anytime.
Yeah. No. Exactly. And that's the one thing that's partially why this Cosmic Connor project is taking longer, is just because it's like, I mean, what
there's been a lot of projects over there too lately.
Well, yeah, that's a big thing too. Is obviously
I can understand, like, whenever there's a day where someone that isn't just coming to your house, I can understand y'all, like, not wanting to turn the amps on.
That's been a big part of it.
I can understand it.
Right. Granted, because there for a while, definitely like the month of like July and August, we were so busy. And the first half of this month, either, I've been busy playing shows, JT's been busy playing shows on the weekends, and then the weekdays we're doing projects, other people's projects. So then it's like, if we do get a, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday where there's not someone at the house, it is nice to just be like,
let's fucking watch Netflix today.
Yeah, let's watch Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah, dude.
cook.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I get it. I love going over there and tracking. I mean, the reason his band's called the Kitchen Choir is because him and I would sit in that kitchen and jam and that's when it was just a kitchen. You know, it's a full on live room now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like a deep freeze and a dining room table and just a full on fucking kitchen. You know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for any reason other than that's just where the instruments were.
Mm.
You know, he had, I don't know if y'all still have this over there, but he had like a 5 or 7 guitar, like a tree stand.
He's told me about that before.
Did you ever see it?
I don't know if he got rid of it or if it's in a shed. I don't know.
Got rid of it. But that was just basically like in the corner of the kitchen, and kind of around it was like all these hand percussion things. And then eventually he bought Dane's drum set, and that was the only place he could put it. So it was like, all right. So it already started like scooting things away in the and so it was just like, and then when he started gigging, whenever he would like bring his gear in, he wouldn't walk it through he would just kind of put, and so like all the amps were right there, and so it just turned into like, yeah, JT's sitting behind the kit, and I'm sitting on the deep freeze with a guitar plugged in.
Yeah.
When it started with like, I'm sitting on the deep freeze with like an acoustic, and he's sitting on the floor with like shakers and marimbas, and we're just like fucking off. And then that grew into like, let's plug some stuff in and play with sticks, and then like that grew into like, now he's living there by himself, and he's like thinking about like putting acoustic treatment in.
Yeah.
And now he's thinking about buying a microphone, and it went from like, I'm thinking about buying this microphone to like, I'm thinking about buying this like $1,500 microphone. And it's like, when he started having, and it's like, I'm thinking about buying like a digital amp that I could maybe like record with easier and go on the road with it. And then he's like, I'm thinking about getting the Kemper. And it's just like, when he starts, like everything about it just grew.
Yeah.
But the place itself has changed because of it, but it's the same place.
Yeah.
And that's his home. And there's something so beautiful about that, like, the quote-unquote podcast that we dropped from like me going to y'all's house and just like chatting and playing for an hour or so.
Yeah.
We talked about that a little bit of just like, that's kind of where he's lived like most of his life. Mm-hmm. And there's something so romantic about that to me, because I've never had that.
Yeah, I agree.
I probably would have had that had I never left Louisiana. Like, but I don't know, even then, like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've just always bounced. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, like, he's utilized his space in a way, I don't know, I don't know. I guess why I love it so much and why I'm so proud to see it is because I'm not trying to be arrogant when I say this. I feel like I was the first person to even tell Jordan that he could do this for a living. And I think when I told him, I don't think he believed me.
Yeah.
You know?
He's that kind of person.
And he was good then.
Yeah.
We were kids, but like he was good then.
Yeah.
He was really good. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think after just inviting him to some shows to play, and then eventually like turning that into like him singing too, and like more of a song swap world. After he graduated, he was overqualified to work anywhere in town for the degree that he had. Mm-hmm. No one wanted to hire him because no one wanted him to be their fucking boss in 6 months.
Yeah.
And so what do you do when you're like what do you do when like, I don't know, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, we were already kind of gigging a little bit. It wasn't hard. He was already kind of gigging with me a little bit. Mm-hmm. So when that moment happened, and he was literally like, I only did this to get a job. Mm-hmm. And now I can't get a job because I did this. When that moment happened, it wasn't hard for him to just call and get his own gigs. Right. You know, I played this winery with Garrett. I'm just going to call him and do my own show. And that decision from making that decision from going to like, okay, these places where I'm getting half of Garrett's money, I'm just going to go and get all of that money. And he can go and get all of that money. That was a better business decision than 4 years of college was.
Right.
For him, specifically. Your college was set up differently than him. You got to really connect to people that live in this world, you know. But you chose that specifically. Mm-hmm. He chose this specifically, too, and it kind of backfired on him.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't know. There's moments where, like, I don't know, maybe you feel this way, too. But it's like once a week I want to retire, you know. Like, once a week I just, like, want to be like, that was my last. That was the last time you're ever gonna hear from me. That was the last show you're ever gonna see. You know.
I mean, okay, I have to go to the bathroom.
This episode of What's Right is brought to you by Fio Music Group. Fio Music Group is a record label based in Texas that's signed to myself, as well as Dane Pack, Peter Sinclair, and others. They're the reason the lights are on most of the time for all of those households. They've partnered with Yellow Dog Studios so that we're able to have nice things like vinyl records with production value. You can learn more about Fio Music Group by going to the website fiomusicgroup.com.
We're good. What were you wanting to piggyback?
Well, you were talking about the studio in Jordan and how it's evolved. Of course, I've only seen it in the last year and a half or so, and how it's evolved. But one of my favorite things that Jordan has done at the house is when he moved the mixing desk was in that small. It's technically a second bedroom,
right?
But I mean, probably could maybe barely get a twin bed in there.
Sure.
When I first moved in, I went in there for a couple of weeks maybe, and he was like, "I have this idea." And he was so nervous to be like...
To present it to you?
Yeah. And I was like, well, what's your idea? Like, that's, you know... And he goes, what if I brought the mixing desk out into the living room? And he was, like, fully expecting me...
To be like, oh, I'm not vibing with that.
Right. But I was like, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that way more people can sit and listen to what's going on.
Yeah. It also, like, when that moment happened... You guys, I don't know if you thought about this or not, but like when that moment happened, it did make a lot more sense. Mm-hmm. It also turned it from, it went from this is a house with a studio in it now to now it changed it to this is a studio where JT and Kenna live.
Right.
It like, when that happened, it encompassed the whole house.
Absolutely.
Because you guys didn't stop using that room when it wasn't the control room anymore. You just used it as a different room.
Right.
Vocal booth, guitar amps, whatever.
Yeah. Now it's a case room and an ISO booth.
Yeah.
And it works
and
better.
It should be that.
Yeah.
It works. It like makes so much more sense. Like you guys have literally left your bedroom to yourself. And also your living room control room. It's set up to where if you guys just want to walk in and watch TV and chill, you can kind of ignore that whole area. Mm-hmm. But when work's being done, everyone in the room's included. Right. Especially with how he's got the speakers in the different positions around. Yeah. That's so legit, dude.
I love it.
The speaker set up too in there when because he's listening to maybe like two different options right here. Right. But then he's clicking on that everybody can the room can fill up with the bass and everything. It's like, it's really legit, man.
It's really a cool setup, and I love it.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
I'm like, why wouldn't we have, half of our kitchen as a
you're
live
just
room
as logical
and,
as you're just as logical as he is. So, like, I feel like he was afraid, there's just like, you guys know each other more now too. Yeah. Than in that moment. Mm-hmm. But there is maybe like a stereotype with girlfriends or stereotype with boyfriends that you guys had to learn that like you guys really don't share. Right. You're your individual person and you're his girlfriend, I guess. But it's like that isn't like a personality trait. Like being someone's girlfriend isn't like a personality trait. Well, it's funny you say that because every now and then I'll be at a show and I'm like, yeah, there's a drum set in half my kitchen and I'm saying that like as a nurse.
Well, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
No, actually, this is a true story. I went to the dentist, and she actually is a musician. She plays piano, and she was asking me about my job, and she was saying that she's a dentist, obviously, and her husband is a doctor, and she was like, "Wait, I want to play piano. We just can't find room for it in the house." And I was like, I have a drum set in my kitchen.
So you were basically like, it's not the house. Don't blame it on the house.
Yeah, it's not the house.
How bad do you want a piano in there? Because we had to put a drum set in there, and so we fucking made room for it.
Right, and it's funny though, because every now and then I'll tell people that like half of my kitchen, which granted I say my kitchen, it's the biggest kitchen.
It is a nice sized kitchen.
It's huge.
You having half a kitchen, you still have plenty of a kitchen.
Yes, it's plenty. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I say that to some people, and they're like, "You're okay with a drum set in your kitchen?" I'm like, actually, yes. I'm happy that it's there. In fact, I like it better because it used to be kind of in that tiny little corner.
Yeah.
And he's brought it out since then, and I'm like, I like that even better because now it's.
It looks purposeful.
It looks purposeful.
It does sound better.
Yeah, it might take.
But also
more
too, like
space,
you've been to Yellow Dog.
Yeah.
Like, where does the kitchen stop and the live room start? There's a fucking piano, 2 organs, and a whirly in there, all with mics on them.
Yeah.
It's like, don't do dishes right now.
Yeah.
That's happening there.
Right.
That's happening at your place.
You know, I haven't really thought of it that way, but you're so right.
It's the same fucking thing, dude.
Mm-hmm.
They have more analog gear down there, but it's like literally no different. It's like, where does the kitchen stop and the live room start?
Right.
Those are 2 of my favorite live rooms, too, and 2 of my favorite kitchens.
Right?
Yeah, man, like, what? I don't know. There's nothing over there but a sink and a coffee maker. It's not fucking up the goddamn tones of the piano or the drums. Mm-mm. It's pretty fucking convenient, too, like, when I'm over there just, like, randomly tracking something on somebody's thing, and it's, like, a couple of us in there, like, if we're doing, like, live scratch takes or something. It's cool to like smell what you just cooked before I got there. Yeah. And it's cool to like be sitting there and you're like, hey, I'm gonna make some coffee. Does anybody want some coffee? And it's just like happening right fucking here. Yeah. It's not like someone tapping on a door or a window, hey, I'm gonna go get some coffee. It's just like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's cool, though, that I just made you think about the comparison of the dog to that. Yeah. I'm constantly comparing y'all's house to that place. And I don't think I would if Dave and Jamie didn't live over there for a little while. So they're over in the cabin again now. But it literally dawned on me in that, like, when we made not the last record. Yeah, the last 2 records we made over there. They were living in the apartment in the studio. Mm-hmm. And so we were over in the cabin, which they're in now. And so it was like, in that moment, me and JT were like outside smoking. We're like, this is technically a home studio. You know what I'm saying? It's like maybe don't walk that far down the hall because you're gonna start walking into somebody's fucking bedroom eventually. Right. It's like that. They live here, and they're making it here. The studio's here. Their house is here. This is a home studio. So where does the studio stop and the home start? Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing when y'all moved the control room out to the living room. That's when it really went from like, yeah, JT's got a home studio to like, no, JT has a studio. Mm-hmm. And they live there. Yeah.
And I love it too. And I mean, there's so many reasons why I love living there at the junk drawer. But it's funny because every now and then JT will bring up some idea. You know, the biggest one was definitely moving the mixing desk out to the living room. But he'll have other ideas about, what if I put acoustic paneling here? And I'm like, yeah, go for it. I mean, I made the decision to move into a studio. Like, I was conscious of that when I made that decision. And, you know, like, it's a studio first in my brain. Obviously, it's also a functioning house, but, like, I've lived in apartments before. As long as I have my bed. Yeah. Yeah, and the one that you saw in Fort Worth was the nicest apartment.
It wasn't. I wasn't calling that one shitty. Any apartment that's gated with a tennis court, I can't call shitty.
Right.
Now, a car was broken into it every night.
Every night.
But this wasn't shitty.
Yeah. See, and that's like when I lived in an apartment in Levelland for the last year I was there, and the apartment was shitty.
Yeah.
But no one's car got broken into.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
So, like, can we talk a little bit about the name change?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so like when we first met, I knew your name, McKenna Kasowski. I think that's how we maybe like personally met.
Mm-hmm.
But like the night we met, you played a short set as Kenna Danielle, and
Yeah.
it was fucking good. It was so good. You're so good, and so it was so good. But now that I know you, and now that, like, just since then, the songs that you've written and the choices you've made in your career to like
Mm-hmm.
to like lean into being more of you
Mm-hmm.
on stage rather than like, is it fair to say that like it was good then and it's good now, and the level of that doesn't, I'm not negating anything. You are fucking good. But right now, it feels like you're stepping on stage as like this person that's sitting here drinking wine and bullshitting with me.
Yeah.
That's who's stepping on stage, rather than like I don't want to say a character, but like a, I don't even know, I want to say a brand. It's like even those two things are like two. It's like a switch,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not turning the switch on now.
Mm-mm.
You're still entertaining. You're still engaged. You're still engaging, and it's still undeniable. It's even more undeniable and more engaging now, because it's not polluted with this industry thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say, other than like, it was good then, it's good now. It's good. I'm not saying that it was ever not good. It was always fucking really good. Stunningly good. There's something more real about it now. There's something more genuine about it now with the music that you've released since the name change.
It is more genuine now. I've got a song I need to show you.
Okay.
It's a new one that I wrote, but it's the kind of song that it is. I could have never written it while I was still going by Kenna Danielle, and that's not saying that I wasn't honest at that time.
Uh-huh.
I think I was. I started going by Kenna Danielle when I was 13 years old.
Right.
So,
So you maybe just, and you're 23, 22?
just turned 24.
24.
Yeah,
And so like that,
it's a big difference.
you're a different person, man.
Absolutely.
You were just a talented kid at 13.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And a talented kid going by Kenna Danielle releases this kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a fucking adult woman with life and experiences and conscious thoughts who happens to be doing this as a living. Those two people make different music.
Right.
And it's okay that you were just both people.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing that is interesting is, you know,
Is that a 10-year difference?
over
13 to 23, 24?
that's 11
yeah.
years.
Dude, yeah.
I changed my name to my real name at 23, on my 23rd birthday.
That's
It
right.
was like a gift to myself, so it was 10 years.
That is what a great like end of a chapter and
Yeah.
beginning of a chapter.
Yeah. And I'm aware that 10 years from now, I'll be a different,
Yeah.
maybe not a different person, but I'll have different outlooks,
sure.
different thoughts, I'm sure I'll
For sure.
have a different way of,
You'll be talking about the art you're making now the way you're talking about the art you made when you're 30.
Right.
When you're 33, you're going to be like, I thought all those big words, I thought I had it figured out when I was 23. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hopefully,
yeah. I hope at that point I'll be better or feel like I'm better. I don't know. But when you're 13 years old, I'd only been playing guitar for 2 years at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I've been writing songs for 1 year at that point. And those songs I was writing, just like any other person, whenever you're learning anything, the first step of learning is regurgitating.
Yes.
You know?
Imitating almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Who are you imitating?
At that point in time, I was listening to Texas country, and Merle Haggard.
Yeah.
I loved Merle Haggard.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was Texas country, so I was listening to, like Bree Bagwell.
Yeah.
I still listen to Bree Bagwell. She's amazing.
But she's grown too.
Absolutely.
So like, how you were resonating with her then, you can still resonate with her now.
Right.
Because like when you were young, she was young. Or whatever. She's a little bit older than you. But like she was making music that resonated with you then. And she's grown as an artist and you've grown as a listener.
Right.
Congruently.
Yes. That's a great way to describe
Not every
that.
Texas country artist has done that.
No.
She's one of the very few. She's always been good.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
who else were you imitating?
I loved...
The Brie imitation was obvious, but that's not something about you. That's about she's done it for so long, so well.
Right.
That you just weren't the only person imitating her.
Right.
Brie's got a lot of babies out there.
Oh yeah.
But what else was mixed up in that?
So Cody Canada
Sure.
was one of my favorites, and Whiskey Myers.
Yeah.
Firewater.
Yeah.
That album changed my
God.
life as a kid.
Changed mine and Dane's too.
Yeah, I love that.
We were, when not when it came out, it had probably been out for a year or so. But him and I both dug it, and we were. How old were you when Firewater came out? I was in high school still.
I was in when I discovered Firewater.
Sure.
I was either just about to be a freshman or was a freshman.
Yeah,
in high
I
school.
think maybe I was like a sophomore in high school. So Dane was probably like a senior. And so us listening to it was like us meeting up at like the Whataburger parking lot and deciding whose truck to get in to go back road to.
That's cool.
And that was us listening to it. And we listened to a couple of Turnpike records that night too, like CDs, you know. And but we would listen to like Firewater at least twice before we would change it to anything else, and then we'd go back to it and we'd listen to it at least twice, and we drove around listening to it like that until the sun came up. I mean, we met up at that parking lot at like fucking like 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And we drove around listening to that. We drove around listening to Firewater, Goodbye Normal Street. Those were honestly the two albums we were just listening to on repeat. That was such a special time in the genre that we've definitely surpassed.
Yeah.
It was like every beginning of a genre is grown from individualism. So you could listen to Turnpike and you could listen to Whiskey Myers, and you couldn't really tell a lot of similarities. They were like, you could listen to Whiskey Myers and be like, they're similar to this, this, and this. Or you could listen to Turnpike and be like, they're similar to this, this, and this. But they weren't similar to one another. They were taking influences from other genres. Whiskey Myers may have been, you know, fucking Skinner and Led Zeppelin. And Turnpikes may have been the Eagles and whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's like they weren't playing in the sonic, and even in the sonic same world. But you could see them on a bill together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You could see them like headline. You could see them like on a festival lineup the same day together.
Right.
That was a special time in the genre that we're not in anymore. The genre is it's it's like they've decided what boxes you need to check now to be involved on those types of lineups.
Right.
Which hones in a genre, you know, but like with trimming the fat of what's going on, you start excluding bands that are like going to be a little more interesting to listen to because they're being more experimental with their composure and their tones and their songwriting and their shows, and it's like, I don't know, with Whiskey Myers, they eventually just had to grow out of the genre.
Right.
Because they're their own thing.
Right.
So through and through, they're so individually their own thing that they had to just go be their own thing rather than like be a part of this. So, you know, they just outgrew a genre. How do you do that? How do you outgrow a genre? It's not like they outgrew a music scene. They obviously did that. But bands do that all the time. Eli Young Band did that.
Yeah.
Pat Green did that. And Co does that. Like, how do you outgrow a genre? They don't even call them Texas country anymore. Isn't that amazing and weird at the same time?
It's interesting to me. I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and it was from Sean Rodriguez from The Wilder Blue, and he started to touch on. He was like, I don't believe in genres. He's like, but that's a different topic.
Yeah.
That's a different podcast.
100%.
100%.
Well, it's like, I don't believe in subscribing to genres.
Yeah.
But it's like, what were you going to say? What was he saying?
Well, I think everyone is influenced by something. Duh.
Yeah.
That's just how things work.
Yeah.
And you can't hide those influences when you're songwriting or even as you're performing, even if it's not a song you wrote. You can't hide those influences by any means. But it is becoming like a certain there's a definite sound that feels required to be on certain in certain circles and in certain lineups and things like that, which has always been a thing. Like, you have to be good, you have to write good songs, you have to have a certain sound to an extent, but there's not a lot of wiggle room right now.
Right. Yeah, it's so like it's like painting by numbers type. You can't be like, look what I painted, and they're like, well, you didn't paint this is like not the same blue.
Yeah.
And you're like, I know, but doesn't this blue look so good? And you're like, yeah, but like we can't. This isn't the blue that people are bluing over, and you're like, this is the only blue that is appropriate for this blue that I was bluing. You're like, that's not the blue.
That's not the blue.
Is that weird to say it that way, though? It's
No.
like, it is that abstract because it's like people that are making those decisions, they're like not making stuff. They're making decisions. They're not making like art and stuff.
It's interesting.
It is.
That being said, there's also, I've recently discovered a couple artists that are doing the whole Texas country or Texas red dirt, whatever that thing is. They're doing that whole scene right now.
What does that even mean now?
I don't know.
Like sonically, what is like as far as the genre is considered? Like what do those folks sound like? Like, is it trickled down? Is it like Co's stuff that's trickled down, or is it more of a folky world?
So I think the stuff that, at least like when I was doing the Ken and Danielle stuff, like and I was really leaning into the Texas country, whatever, those festivals and lineups that I wanted to be on, there is a definite sound now. Like those same festivals that I wanted to be on 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah. That had Whiskey Myers and Turnpike on the same bill.
And Turnpike, yeah. Now I feel like it's definitely bypassing that folkier sound and going straight to I don't know.
What does it sound like?
Sounds like rock music to me, which is fine.
Yeah.
I love rock music,
Yeah.
but it's hard.
It's like a very specific. No, you can say it. You can though. Like,
I'm a lyrical person. I listen to lyrics first, and you can only recycle lyrics.
Don't you feel so unattached to the industry?
I do.
Then what are you not saying that you want to say, and why aren't you saying it?
I wish people would work on their lyrics.
Me too.
And work on their something to say.
That is the singular reason why I'm making like sonic music in spite of that genre. Mm-hmm. I don't want to make me. I'm so associated from the Callahan days, and just from living in Texas as long as I have, and playing the places that we play. I'm so associated with Texas country music all the time that I want to make it. I want to make it sound to you so obviously like this is not Texas country music.
Right.
But maybe if we were living in the days where individualism reigned and a festival could have Whiskey Myers and Turnpike on the same bill, maybe I could also be on that bill. But because those borders keep getting narrower, you've made it to where I'm not even participating in that genre anymore, or that scene, or that industry. From the sheer fact of like what you're saying.
Yeah.
The borders of the Americana genre, if you will, allows for me to be like talking about genre and how genre doesn't exist. I love saying genre doesn't exist, but I work in the studio too much to truly believe that.
Right.
But I write songs in a diverse kind of. Diverse is maybe an arrogant way of saying it. I write songs in different genres sometimes, and I love when I'm writing a country song. I acknowledge that genre is real, and there are rhymes and reasons to what makes something a country song.
Right.
And there are borders and rules to follow, and if you break them, it should only be satirically because we're fucking in the border. We're in the confines of what is called a country song.
Right.
And I like doing that with country songs, and I like doing that with like, I don't know, like a blues song. I think the blues means like this, and this means the blues, and this, and this means country. And like anything else that I'm writing, if it's a little more abstract or anything else, I can cling to this Americana thing if you need an answer.
Right.
But it's like I'm writing them so individually. I'm not writing even in the concept of like you putting them in chunks like they're like this. I'm writing this song is this. And this particular song I'm working on may sound like a 60s rock and roll bop. I don't know.
Right.
But if it is that, I'm going to commit to that genre and that time and that space in that genre. And so this song is that. But the next song is just a country song from now. And so and I'm going to commit to like what a country song now is.
Right.
And it's like that's why I acknowledge genre. And genre to me is more about a timeline than it is sometimes about like what instruments you're playing.
Yeah.
It's more about like what was happening in the studio. It's like what instrument's going on because that coincides with this. But like when you're writing it and you're just kind of feeling the rhythm of it, it's like if you're trying to be innovative and you're trying to make something new, you don't have to follow any rules at all.
Right.
But if you're making a country song that's really on the nose, you know what those mean. I'm gonna change this battery and then we can just
Sweet.
end it if you want. I was trying to make it to where we could.
This episode of What's Right is brought to you by Andor Peppers. Andor Peppers is family owned and operated. They have small batch fermented hot sauces and smoked spice mixes from garden to bottle to table. They have physical locations in West Virginia and Florida. If you can't find them there, if you're not around, you can go to andorpeppers.com. Thank you, Andor Peppers.
What the fuck were we talking about?
Genre.
Anyway, yeah, that's how I like to think about genre. Like one song at a time.
Yeah.
And that's it's the same reason why I say things like genre isn't real. Genre doesn't matter. But I mean that as far as like you as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Genre doesn't have to matter. Genre doesn't have to matter.
Right.
It's more of like use it as a tool.
Yeah.
Rather than like an umbrella to stand under.
Right. I think that's important in what we were just kind of talking about is when I'm in the process of writing a song, unless it's I'm pretty well versed in country music. So if I start writing it and I'm like, okay, this is a country song,
you just let it be.
Let it be. But other than that, if I'm writing a song, I don't care what genre it is until after it's done. All the words are finalized. You're not even really
thinking about it, right?
No, it's not even a thought. Once it's done, I'm like, okay, where does this song fit sonically?
Yeah.
You know, that's important because I get stifled if I think too hard about.
Yeah.
Will this gel well with this kind of audience or whatever?
Yeah, I had. You do too, but like I have a lot of friends that like just write in one genre, just write in one way, and just write in one style, and that seems stifling to me. And I'm only saying that because I'm talking about the people that like they're doing it purposefully.
Yeah,
they're not. This is this is as good as I can do. I'm not talking about those folks. I'm talking about people that are really good at what they do, and they're choosing to do one thing. They're choosing to do dream pop. They're choosing to do country. They're choosing to do folk, singer-songwriter stuff, whatever.
That baffles me.
Yeah, me too. And it's like, I don't know. I understand it if it's like one project at a time.
Right.
But I still don't want to write that way on the daily.
No, because I'm sure, I don't know how you feel, but as I'm writing a song, my concern is what serves this song? What do I need to do for this song to be complete?
For it to now be such a reflective, therapeutic thing, that question, like that, in that context, it is a very selfless and like, it's a very, not selfless, but like, it isn't like a selfish endeavor at that point.
No.
I'm definitely asking like a very objective question about this thing that maybe like sparked from something that meant something. But now because I do what I do and I'm this far in it, it's a piece of work now.
Yeah.
And so it's like, fuck. I'm asking myself questions about it now that aren't always retaining to like the truth maybe. Because like maybe, I don't know, maybe the story's better if I lie. And I'm not saying I do all the time.
Yeah.
And usually telling the truth is the best way to go because usually that's more bonkers than anything that you could fucking make up. I truly believe that.
Me too.
But in those moments like where you start looking at it differently. You stop looking at it like the journal entry it started as. You start looking at like the next track on your next album that you haven't made yet, and you're like, is that good or bad?
I think it's necessary. I don't think it's good or bad.
I just think it's going to happen. I think it's inevitable. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, There's one song that I'm planning on putting on chapter 2 of Cosmic Kana that the song structure is there, but the first two verses were written in a certain headspace, and then the second verse was written in an entirely different headspace.
Right.
And the second verse is better than the first two, just objectively, and so I've got to go back and kind of revisit. Okay, how do I edit? But
when does that stop? Like because if it's gonna keep bettering itself every time, and you're like, oh well, I can't have a better first verse than a second verse, and then you better the second verse, and you're like, well, I've had too much time to think about the first verse. I have to make that better now. When does that stop? Do you think you can trust yourself to just touch back on the first verse, edit it, and just leave it alone and be like, that's the end of that process?
I do, and I'll tell you why. with this specific song, it's called Meridian.
I can do that too, but like I don't want to work.
Right.
I don't want to overwork.
Right.
I just want it to be as good as it can be.
Right.
To an extent.
Absolutely. With this particular song, I do trust myself to do that. And it's because the song is called Meridian, and it was written off of a prompt I was given. I'm in a songwriting group. We've talked about it before. We get a new prompt every 2 weeks. You don't have to use the prompt. It's encouraged.
Right.
However, this 1 week, I, in all honesty, wasn't feeling very inspired when I started the song. So those first 2 verses were just like, I have to write a song. And then I wrote the chorus. I still like the chorus. And then I lived a few days. And then life happened. And that second verse was a lot more meaningful. It felt more meaningful. It made more sense. And so I think I just, once I go, now that I know kind of what the song is referring to, if that makes sense. Like the first verse and that chorus, the chorus made sense, but I still wasn't entirely sure what I was talking about until I wrote that second verse.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's good songwriting or not, but I wrote that second verse and I was like, okay, now I get it, and now I need to go back.
Yeah.
And make it clear again. So
I've done that so many times too.
it happens.
And I think like if you're really looking out for the song, you will go back. Mm-hmm. When you have that moment,
Yeah.
I really think if you're like looking out for the song and looking out for like what's best for your album and what you want to present, because like you never know if it's going to be one, like, cause you've done it for so long. Like when you go to certain towns, you may have to fucking play a song that you wrote 10 years ago, you know? And so like, do you think about that now when you record music?
Honestly,
No. Yeah.
not at all.
But you've also just changed your name.
Yeah.
In a way.
That's helpful.
To be able to start over in a complete.
Yeah.
And like, I fucking feel that. That's cool.
Now, when we did that show in Conroe, I had to bring an acoustic guitar and a capo.
Which you don't do now.
Which I don't do.
That's a very Kenna Danielle.
Yeah.
The acoustic guitar and capo combo is a very Texas country thing.
Right.
For you to do now.
Correct. And I had to.
You've had to play some of the hits.
Yeah, I had to be like, okay, baby.
That's kind of what I'm
take
asking.
A break.
Yeah.
And in that one circle, because
thanks for bringing me to that show too. I had such a good time.
That was so fun. Thanks for playing that with me.
Of course.
But that was one of those moments where I had to be like, okay, band, y'all can take a break, and what do y'all want to hear? And
it wasn't pandering either. It wasn't like.
Oh, thanks.
It was you like, you need to read your room sometimes, and you need to read the room every time.
Yeah.
And you were reading the room. And they were really enjoying what you were showing them, but they also came to see something too.
Right.
And the thing is like, you don't really have to worry about that in multiple markets. And that's the realization that I made about my early stuff and like playing around here or maybe like in Louisiana or something. Like those are, I used to be like, no, I don't want to play that song I wrote when I was 15. But I started to realize, like, it was really only in those 2 very specific markets that ever even really came up. And they're still coming to listen now. And it's like, okay, that they've just been involved.
Yeah.
Since the beginning. And a lot of it's family, a lot of it's friends. Some of it's fans, too, you know?
Yeah.
And for people to be, I'm 26, you're 24? I'm about to be 27. But you and I have connections with people, you know, and we can call them fans or whatever, but we have friendships and connections with people that have been following our careers since we were children.
That's big.
Yeah, dude. And I'm not saying that number is gross or huge, and I'm not saying that is going to be able to like make us buy a house or anything from their fandom,
Right.
But that's also not what that's about. That's just when you go back to those towns you will see one or two or three of those people that have just always, every time you've played in that town, they've just come.
Right.
And they don't ask for anything in return other than to see whatever it is you're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty special. And I've really, every time, you know, because of not sticking to genres and stuff, I'll put out an album and I'll get fans, and I'll put out an album and some of those people won't like that. I'll get some other fans, but I'll lose some. And I'll put out an album, and they don't sound the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, if I put out an album that sounds country, and then I put out an album that sounds jazzy, well, the country fans aren't going to like that, but some jazz people are going to find it. You know what I mean? And so it's like, not that I've done either one of those things, but like, that's just the idea behind it.
Right.
You know? And so like, I put out something that sounds differently every time, and it's not like, Sturgill can do that. He's on top of the world. He stayed consistent until he was on top of the world. He was putting out country music, and then he was putting out country music, then he was putting out psychedelic country music, and then he was on top of the world. And he started doing anything he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I look at someone like him for artistic guidance because I resonate with like what the fuck he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily have the fandom that he has, but I have the integrity to not make the same album twice.
Right.
There's plenty of like early Kenny Chesney albums that I really thoroughly, you know, I was just around a lot of that when I was a kid. I was listening to whatever was famously on country radio, to CMT and GAC and stuff. That was what was going on musically before I started finding music myself. But until he did the whole fucking mermaid thing, it was like the same genre. Everything was the same genre. And every artist that I was listening to, regardless of the genre, I was realizing it was like, it was the same genre. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know, you find, like when I was a kid, I found like, not to be like white trashy or anything, but like, there was like a particular Kid Rock CD that I listened to, and it literally, it had like a country song on it, and a rock song on it, and a rap song on it, and a bluegrass song, and it had like a live track, and it was the I've found more diverse music since then, but when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old, and I'm just flipping through a CD collection at my house that is not mine, it's just a grown adults that's just sitting here.
Right.
Collecting dust, and I just like music, so I'm fucking flipping through them. It was like the first CD that I put in that I realized kind of sounds like what we now have, like playlists. Mm-hmm. It's like playlists for a sunny day, and it's like that could be rap, country, whatever. It's like different things. But like at that time, I was just listening to full CDs, and I listened to that, and like it was weird to hear like a country song, and then the next track not be a country song.
Right.
But it was cool.
Yep. Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. My dad, I got to like go to my dad's band rehearsals and stuff, and some of the private parties that they would play. And they were just like a really tight cover band. They were just like the cover band you want to come do your thing, you know? Mm-hmm. And so because of that, you know, they would play a George Strait song, and then they would play like a 90s grunge song, and then they would play like Brick House, you know, like in a row. And like, that's happening at the same time that I'm listening to this Kid Rock thing, at the same time that I'm like starting to find music on my own that isn't whatever my family's been around or whatever's on the radio. And so in that moment, it's like, that's why I can say something like, what is genre? Mm-hmm. Because who gives a fuck? Because like, no one was telling me any difference between like this Whitney Houston cover that they did, or this Brick House cover that they did, or this George Strait cover that they did. No one was telling me any different. No one was stopping in between and going, this is country now, and this is this now. I had to figure that out on my own. But in the beginning, it was just this gumbo pot, this like melting pot of all of it happening you know what I'm saying? And that's why I feel like now, I guess I'm only having this realization now saying this out loud, but I feel like that's why it's one song at a time for me.
Mm-hmm.
Genre is one song at a time for me. It's because I come from this world of, my dad was in cover bands, really good ones, and my uncles were in really good cover bands. And I was gravitating towards albums that had multiple genres on them.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Anyway.
That's awesome.
I just had a whole realization. When did you find Michael Martin Murphy? Were you young?
So I was.
Was that like the Disney equivalent to folk music? As far as movements and was that like the classical music version of songwriting? Not, you don't have to agree with that if it's not. I just feel like the chord movements and the melodies are so elevated.
They are. So I discovered, particularly Michael Martin Murphy and Jim Croce. I was either 13 or 14, and so I had already played guitar. I'd already written my first song, and Michael Martin Murphy, Jim Croce, and Merle Haggard were the three artists that I gravitated towards when it came to songwriting, but Michael Martin Murphy in particular, because he was using chords that I didn't know how to play.
Right.
And I'd never heard of.
Right.
And he was the first artist that I heard that and still to this day, his first album he put out, I think he put it out in 1972. It was called Geronimo's Cadillac.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still to this day one of my favorite albums. And I think...
And you found it at what age?
I was either 13 or 14.
That's so rad.
Yeah. And I think why I gravitated towards it was because I had started playing guitar and writing songs and singing, that kind of thing. But even to this day, this project that I'm putting out that's called Cosmic Kana, I can see why. I can look at that album and know why I'm putting out this Cosmic Kana record, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you can see the influence still.
Yeah, we're not lyrically.
Sure.
Not even, he's very, Western,
right.
Wear a bolo tie and
right.
cowboy hat and use a painting for the album artwork of a cowboy.
Yeah.
That's literally what that album artwork is. But at the same time, I can listen to it and I can see where he, at that time, what country music sounded like. He was doing something that was cosmic country.
Yeah, dude. Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
And that's even and that's not taking away from popular country music that still had big jazz movements and big chord structures and stuff. It was just the combination of it all is he was he was a little bit ahead of his time, but but also I don't know. It's I'd only ever heard stuff of his in passing. It's always from songwriters though. It was you know what I mean? It was no one in my family was ever you should really hear this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you and just random other good songwriters just brought him up. That's basically how I got into Guy Clark. Was I heard that the fucking 3 hits that you hear at every beer joint that you're at ever.
Right.
And I heard those. They're great. I always enjoyed them. But you just when you hear someone's name brought up in a particular type of way so much, you have to listen to it.
Right.
And with Guy Clark, it was I started becoming scared to start. Because it kind of seemed when someone's I've never seen any Star Wars. I've never seen any Game of Thrones.
Me either.
And those are some fucking thick world building.
Right.
I don't have the time to like catch up with you.
Yeah.
I can't watch 13 Star Wars movies
No.
and a couple of shows, and I can't watch 10 seasons of that sounds like so.
It's cumbersome.
Yeah, and so like I started not that guy released fucking 45 albums or anything, but
Right.
I just knew that each song was going to be a lesson. And so I was so hesitant to start because I'd been writing already for so long.
Yeah.
And I just felt like as soon as I dove into his shit legitimately, felt like I was going to have to ball up everything I've ever done and throw it away and start over. And in a way, like metaphorically, that's what I did.
Right.
I didn't do that with my work, but I did start taking my work and looking at it in a different way. And I just had this realization, I guess, last week. Over here I have like just notes and stuff from working on different songs. I went to my dad's house, which I stayed over, there was like a year or so ago where I was writing this last album I put out, where like he wasn't there. And, like I had like 5 roommates and he wasn't there, and he had a pool. And so I just like went over there all the time. I just pretended like his house was mine.
Yeah.
And my piano's over there. And so I was writing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same time when Dane was finally like, no, you really need to listen to these in a row right now, Guy Clark songs. And I did, and I started like deep diving him while I was kind of over there writing all those songs. And like Guy Clark would he would sometimes write his songs on like grid paper and finish the song and then cut every line out individually and then try and see if he could rearrange it to make it make sense, even in a more poetic, cool way. And I didn't go that far, but I did. I realized I dove so big into his ethos that I didn't even realize how much he was inspiring me. But I went over to Jay's the other day, my dad's house, my ex-stepdad, but whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway, he's like a mile that way, and that's where I was chilling, and that's where I was writing. And he was like, hey, I found this fucking notebook, it's full of your shit, like I figured you'd want it, thank you so much, yeah. And I haven't thought about it at all, but like I flipped through it, and like there's like verses on envelopes and verses on napkins and verses in the notebook actually. Mm-hmm. And they're all like basically full written songs, but I'm reading them and I don't really know any of these songs anymore, but I can see like this chunk here went in a song that I used here.
That's
and
interesting.
This chunk here went into the bridge of this other thing that I made. And so it was like, because of that Guy Clark ethos, I started thinking about it in a more objective way of like, just because I finished this song, quote unquote, but I'm never going to fucking play this thing. But there's some good poetry in here that can co-relate, like can really relate with like how I'm feeling in this song.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, this may have been the first verse to this thing, but it can act as the bridge to this thing. And it's like, instead of thinking about them as like this song and this song and this song, when I was writing them and editing them and making an album, I started looking at them smaller. This part, this part, this part. And then looking at them smaller. This line, this line, this line. And so there's a whole song written on an envelope that I could not even play you today because I literally just played it that day and wrote it and never touched it again.
Right.
But there's a line in the top and a line at the bottom and a line in the middle that like I used in a bridge somewhere else in a song that's coming out. You know? Do you do that? Are you ever that like do you ever just pull from this thing you're not going to use and put it where you... Isn't that like kind of like part of the job? Don't you feel like that's... That's why I never mind finishing a bad song.
Yeah.
Like, I never really feel like it's a loss because, like, even if I feel like it's I just know there's something in it I can use somewhere. Even if this thing isn't something I'm going to show someone, I know I didn't just like show up and the whole fucking thing's terrible.
Yeah.
I can at least use this if it is like a concept thing.
It's true. I wrote a song. I had to have been 19. I was in college. The song wasn't even fully finished. But my favorite line in that song was, "Is this love or is this suicide?" And
Great line.
thank you. And I repurposed that line, and in Lori, I'm Trying, the hook line to that song is, "To love is suicide."
That's right.
So when I said that, I wasn't thinking about that other song.
Sure.
But
you weren't using that other song anymore.
no, but it wasn't, it was that same day that I wrote that line that I was like, that I feel like I know that. And I went back on my work tapes because I have everything.
Yeah.
Shout out to iPhone memos, voice memos.
Yeah.
I went back and I was like, oh, that was that song I wrote when I was being dramatic at 19 years old.
Yeah.
And here I am being dramatic at, I think I was 23.
Yeah.
And it worked out great.
Yeah. I showed you this new album I'm sitting on the other day.
Sounds amazing, by the
Thank
way.
you. Thank you.
I'm so excited. I'm envious that I can't just like press play and jam it now.
I'll send it to you.
Oh, thanks.
It's I'm so proud of it.
You should be. It's
But
amazing.
that whole project is sprinkled with lines that I just ripped from like songs from that era that I was talking about, where I was just like at my dad's house, just like banging on the piano.
Yeah.
With like really not much to do.
Yeah.
And those songs that I made there weren't necessarily all that good, but I didn't give a fuck. I was just writing songs. And I don't know. It's just like that. I was thinking of a line specifically in a song called Paper Mache. Papier Mache is the bridge is like, "I don't need you as an anchor. Just wave to me from the shore." Mm-hmm. Blah, 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 blah. I had that same moment that you were talking about where I was like, when I wrote that bridge, I was like, that is something. Mm-hmm. And then like, it wasn't until when Jay gave me that notebook and I read that envelope, that was just like the third line of the first verse of some song that I just never used. But it was like, for some reason, that imagery in that order, in that way, was like, I have to say this for some reason.
Right.
And the reason I did it the reason I put it in that bridge of that particular song is like because of like all the imagery about like the beach and waves and all that other stuff. And so like it just made sense to put this anchor imagery and this wave to me from the shore imagery, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally just ripped it from myself. I've been doing that. That's basically been a part of my process from the beginning. Like ever since I've had more than fucking 3 or 4 songs in a notebook, I've been like making one and looking back at one that I'm not going to show anybody and ripping from it.
That's kind of the point.
I think so.
That's the point of recording things. And when I say recording, I mean like writing down and making notes. Mm-hmm. I mean, I mean, one of my favorite songs I've written is that Lori, I'm Trying, and it came direct from a song I wrote when I was 19 that is not a good song.
Right.
But there were 2 or 3 good lines in it.
The thing that was good about it was like the seed of it being a good song.
Exactly.
That song and that seed needed fucking 4 years to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Man. I love you.
I love you.
At the P. Let's stop. You have anything you want to plug? You have a website?
I do. It's McKennaKasowski.com.
All right, get shit there.
Yep.
All right. I have to pee so fucking bad.
Best of luck.